are a direct descendant of my core crew. And you are the first member of my core crew to be on board in 50,000 years. That makes you the senior member of the crew. And therefore, by definition, you're a captain. And Calhoun's like, oh, no. Well, unfortunately, how do you outweight a computer that's been sitting up here for 50,000 years? How do you outstubborn it? So he agrees to be the captain. And when he gets down to Earth, he finds out, among other things, that there's actually two factions of Imperials who have been around for 50,000 years fighting each other. There's Anu and his guys, and then there's another group. They have one ship. They haven't been harvesting any other bodies. They started out with like 200 and they're down to like 80. They've been sort of spinning their lives out by going in and out of cryo. They have a bunch of what they call Terraborn allies that they have brought in. Many of them are their descendants. And their leader is a guy named Horus, who spells it just like the Egyptian god for interesting reasons, who is also was a professor at Clemson University for many years. But he was one of the mutineers, and he realized that Anu had lied to them before they ever left the ship. And his wife, Tanizis, was also part of the mutiny, and was killed, lost in the fighting. He has their daughter, who was like 5 at the time of the mutiny, on the ship that he and his friends were on. They had most of the children that belonged to the mutinous faction. That Tanizis was one of the few people in combat armor, even on the mutineer side. And she was escorting the kids to safety when they ran into a firefight. And the last thing that her daughter Jiltanith ever sees of her is Jiltanith is being pulled out of her mother's arms by one of the other adults while her mother disappears into this like cauldron of explosions and everything else. It's the last time her... Actually, it's not, but she thinks it is. Anyway, Jiltanith is the youngest of the Northerners, because they're under the Cascade Mountains in Canada, whereas the Anu's down in the south. She's only like 96. Colin is like in his 30s. But on the other hand, they're both now fully enhanced. Dahak does that for Colin before he goes down. So they're both going to live like 500 years. So it's like, let's see, 60 out of 500, not a big thing, And physically, she's not any older than he is. She also speaks 15th century English and carries a dagger everywhere she goes. There's a reason. Anyway, she doesn't trust him for shit when they meet either, Well, the thing is that he winds up getting her nephew and her daughter, her nieces, grandnieces, killed. He doesn't know that that's what he's going to do, and he kills the people who killed them. But in Jiltanith's eyes, the shortened form of her name is Tani. So if you hear me saying that, But in Tani's eyes, they wouldn't have been killed if he hadn't been doing what he was doing. Because what he's done is he needs to come back to Earth and find a way to get a suppressor inside the perimeter of the shield around the base down in Antarctica. If he can do that, then he can take the shield down, and Dahak can get in with weapons that won't require him to sterilize a hemisphere. But in the process, he finds out that one of his best friends is a mutineer, and he goes to confront him. And his discovery of his friend's high-tech equipment that he has leads Anu's people to him, because he is actually with Horus's people. And so not only has he gotten her nephew, and Horus's grandson, and his wife, and his 12-year-old daughter and his 5-year-old daughter murdered. Okay, but her dad has offered to place Nurgle at his orders and to face Imperial justice as a mutineer at the end of it, if he will accept their help to try and take out Nurgle, to try and take out Anu. And he does. Okay, and so the first book is all about how Colin and Nurgle and Horus and Jiltaneth, Horus, Hector MacMahon, who is a Marine Colonel, Special Forces Command, who is also descended from Nurgle's crew, etc. How they actually managed to take out the Southerners. In the course of which Jiltaneth very briefly sees her mother again, but doesn't realize. Thank God. The second book, okay, see, you had to have the background to put the rest of it in context.
Okay.
Okay, because otherwise you're like, they're doing what? Why? Yeah. So the second book, basically Colin has succeeded in destroying the... Oh, and Dahak gets to personally shoot Anu. Colin puts him aboard a lifeboat and launches it towards Dahak, okay, knowing that he cannot possibly, and he locks the controls with an alpha priority when he sends them in, and Dahak could fire anytime he wants to, but he waits, and he waits, and he waits until the lifeboat hits the perimeter, and then bop! He pops him like a zit. Okay, nobody ever deserved it more. But anyway, Colin has named himself the Imperial Governor of Earth, which he can get away with because he's the senior naval guy. And he's done this because all of them have figured out that something bad has probably happened to the Imperium. Okay? But before they go in on this attack where so many of them are going to get killed, okay, he's like, okay, we're not going to leave this unresolved. So he declares a court-martial board with himself sitting as the only member because he's the only officer of battle fleet available. He finds them all guilty and sentences them to death. Then, in his sector governor persona, he pardons them all and restores them to duty, kind of thing. And so the double jeopardy clause kicks in, and no matter what happens after this, they're golden, okay? Plus, any of them who get killed are going to be killed knowing, okay, that their record's been cleared, the whole 9 yards. That's the only reason he declared himself governor of Earth. But then he finds out he has to stay governor of Earth because you got the People's Republic of China, you've got the Soviet Union. You find out that like 30% of all the government figures in the various world governments, the politicians especially, were in Anu's pocket. Okay, you find out that he's been orchestrating terrorist attacks all the way because he's trying to pressurize R&D to come up with a domestically produced faster-than-light drive so that his guys can sneak away without having to worry about Dahak anymore, etc. All this has been going on. And so there's this huge distrust of all governments, and everything else as the word starts to come in. So basically, he names Horus Lieutenant Governor of Earth and declares peace against the entire planet, okay?